Factor.com studio. We've been talking about the death of Herman Cain. In 1994, he was then the head of a large restaurant chain. And this is when Bill Clinton was pushing what was then called Hillary Care in 1994. And he had a little town hall thing where people were invited to listen to him and to ask questions. And a gentleman named Herman Cain respectfully stood up, and here's what happened.
Mr. President, thank you very much for this opportunity. And I would first like to commend you on making health care a national priority. In your State of the Union speech, you indicated that 9 out of 10 Americans currently have health care insurance primarily through their employers. But for many, many businesses like mine, the cost of your plan is simply a cost that will cause us to eliminate jobs. On behalf of all of those business owners that are in a situation similar to mine, my question is quite simply, if I'm forced to do this, what will I tell those people whose jobs I will have to eliminate?
Are any of your employees insured now?
Yes, sir. Approximately 1/3 of my employees are insured now.
And of the third that are insured now, what % of payroll is their insurance cost?
My insurance costs at the present time run approximately 2.5% of payroll.
And let me ask you this. On average, food service businesses, payroll is about 1/3 of the total cost of doing business. Is that about what it is?
That's an adequate estimation. Yes, sir.
Okay, so suppose, since you have part-time workers and some wouldn't have to cover it, so you wouldn't go from 2.5% of payroll to 7.9%. You might go to something like 6.5%. That's a good even number. You add 4% of payroll, and that's 1/3 of your total cost. So you would add about 1.5% to the total cost of doing business. Would that really cause you to lay a lot of people off if all your competitors had to do it too? And why wouldn't you all be able to raise the price of pizza 2%? I'm a satisfied customer. I'd keep buying from you.
Okay, first of all, Mr. President, with all due respect, your calculation on what the impact would do, quite honestly, is incorrect. Now, let's suppose that 30% of my costs are labor costs. 7.9 times that would be the 2 to 2.5% that you're referring to. The problem with that calculation, sir, is the fact that most of those 30% of the people currently have zero. It actually works out to be approximately 16%. Now, your other point about having to pass it on to my customers, in the competitive marketplace, it simply doesn't work that way because the larger competitors have more staying power before they go bankrupt than a smaller competitor. So what I'm saying and suggesting is that the assumptions about the impact on a business like mine are simply not correct because we are very labor intensive. We have a large number of part-time and short-term employees that we do not cover for one simple reason. We can't afford it.
Let me ask you a favor. Would you send to me personally your calculations? Because I know we got to go on to other questions.
Very respectfully told this man, how dare you impose costs on our business? You've never run a business. You don't know how it works. And someone from the outside is going to decide to jack up my costs? And notice there was no rancor, no nastiness. Herman Cain didn't treat him the way Craig Melvin treated Vernon Jones. And Herman Cain had an interview years later with Piers Morgan when he was thinking of running, when he was running in 2011.
Let me take you back to your early days.
Yes.
Very, very, I mean, you said it wasn't even poverty that you came up in, it was Po, which is even worse than poverty.
You did real good with that word.
Thank you.
You know, being
did I say it right? In a
you
British
got it
way?
good, yeah.
Po. So tell me about Po. How Po was it?
Well, when your dad was working very, very hard, and we could only get lunch money 1 day a week to go to grade school, and the other 4 days, our lunch consisted of whatever my mother could scrape together from the dinner the night before. We would have sandwiches with no meat.
What is your calling right now? Why do you feel this burning desire to be president, a job that many people view as one of the most thankless jobs in the world?
My calling is to make a difference. And I have done this all my life. I never dreamed that I would have a calling to make a difference at this level. But it really goes back to 1999 when my first grandchild was born. And I looked in her face, and the first thought that went through my mind, was, what do I do to make this a better nation and a better world? I didn't know the answer then. And it took 12 years for this journey to unfold.
As a black man who is now leading the Tea Party charge, how do you deal with that element in the Tea Party that is overtly racist?
Let me say that my experience has been there is no more a racist element in the Tea Party than there is in the general population at large. It isn't. It is not. If there is, it's not. This is the biggest misperception. I spoke at the first Tea Party event that I ever spoke at, April 15, 2009. I have spoken at hundreds of Tea Parties. It's not a racist organization.
Why don't you like using African American, by the way?
Because as I trace my roots back in this country, the majority of my roots, the ones that are more meaningful to me, were the slaves that were my foreparents, my forefathers. And so I identify as a black American more so than an African American. Yes, many of the slaves came from Africa, but my heritage is mostly here in the United States. With the country went through slavery, we went through the civil rights movement, so I prefer the term black American rather than African American. That's going back too far.